This unfortunately can lead to a perpetual cycle of focusing on what our lives lack instead of being grateful for what we have. Now, I don't blame anyone for this. I do this. Hey, welcome back to your regularly scheduled self-reflection. I'm Tash, and this is Things We Say in Therapy, a place to feel seen and heard and to learn new things. You'll hear a blend of psychological insight as well as my own personal stories, usually centered around the less spoken about sides of mental health, things that I don't hear about much that I think are important to talk about. If this information speaks to your experience, that's amazing. I'm so happy you're here. If not, I hope it's valuable for your growth in the future. Everyone's story is different, and that's perfectly fine. Have you ever started comparing yourself to someone else's job or relationship or even just their eye colour, only to realise that it's actually not all that, or the other person that has that thing that you want actually desires what you have? I've always wondered why we chase so many things that seem out of reach, despite what we have being perfectly suitable for us. For example, I've always wanted blue eyes. My mum has blue eyes, my dad has brown eyes, and I inherited brown eyes, and I've always wanted blue eyes. And I've always been so upset that I didn't inherit those blue eyes from my mum. I think blue eyes are absolutely stunning, but I've always been told that I have lovely eyes. And I have friends who have blue eyes who have always wanted brown eyes. So today I'll be talking about the common phenomena where we always want what we don't have. This concept blends exactly what we do here at Things We Say in Therapy, psychological concepts and personal experience. For this topic today, I'll be talking about a lot more psychological concepts than usual, just because I think that there's a lot more that are relevant for this topic. So this might be a bit of a long one. So grab a tea or a coffee and let's get going. So we're mostly going to be talking about the psychology of desire. So why do we always want that thing that we don't have? Why do we always want the things that seem out of reach? The first aspect of that is something called hedonic adaptation. So put very simply, this is the idea that we get used to what we have. We get used to what we've always had, or in psychological terms, we get used to the continuous emotional stimuli of those things that we have, because we see or hear or experience those things every single day. Or for physical aspects of ourselves, we've had that our whole lives. So we get used to that emotional stimuli that brings us when we look in the mirror every day. Hedonic adaptation says that over time, we get so used to that emotional stimuli that our brain starts to crave something new, something novel. There's something similar to this called the hedonic treadmill, which is the idea that a human's initial emotional response to any kind of major event, be that positive or negative, the emotional reaction that we have can be intense at first, but we naturally adapt to those new circumstances. We naturally adapt to those emotional experiences that we have to that event. And so they become less and less over time. And because they become less and less over time, we actually end up at our initial emotional state before that event happened. And that then becomes our baseline again. And then hedonic adaptation says that when we get used to that baseline, we then crave something new and novel to experience. The second psychological phenomena that I have is the grass is always greener effect. I'm sure at some point in your life you've heard the phrase grass is greener. And it's the idea that it's always easier to fantasize and fantasize and romanticize those things that we don't have because we haven't experienced the downsides to having those things. I suppose with physical attributes, those downsides would be that we would feel the exact same as having what we have now because we'd be so used to it. That hedonic adaptation would be the same. You just get used to what you have over time and then you want something new. I suppose all of these things can be related to both physical appearance and life experiences. Another arbitrary example that I'll use from personal experience, people that have straight hair want curly hair and people with curly hair want straight hair. We don't realise the downsides of having either of those things. with curly hair, it's quite hard to maintain. With straight hair, it doesn't have as much volume. There are more meaningful examples that I will use that I'll touch on in a bit, but just so you get the gist of the concepts that I'm talking about, I'm using very arbitrary, simple examples. The third psychological concept that I'm going to talk about is scarcity bias. This is the idea that things seem a lot more valuable when they're rare or inaccessible to us. Something that came to mind for me with this one is the countries that we live in. So I've actually been living in Australia for 7 to 8 years now, but I was born and grew up in the UK until I was 18. When I first moved to Australia, I was like, oh my God, there's going to be so much sun. It's going to be warm all the time. We're going to be able to go to the beach and because I never experienced that living in the UK because it's rainy and cold for a lot of the year. And it's the complete opposite here. So moving to Australia and having really hot summers and the sun all year round was really attractive to me at first. When I first came here, it was like a holiday, having that intense heat that you don't get in the UK. But now, having lived here for so long, I complain about the heat a lot, and I don't like how long the summers are and how hot and humid it gets. And I much prefer those gloomy and rainy days, and I crave that now. But I'm sure if I still lived in the UK, I'd be craving what I have here, without sounding ungrateful, of course, because Australia is beautiful and I'm very lucky to be living here. So obviously this can expand to the life experiences that we have, right? We're always focusing on what we don't have instead of what we do have. And it's so easy to do that because of that hedonic adaptation. So the final psychological commonality is social comparison. Social comparison is a massive source of distress and unhappiness. I'm sure you've heard the term FOMO, or fear of missing out. This experience can extend beyond missing out on a night out with your friends. This is absolutely accentuated by social media, where every day you can view the highlight reels of other people's lives so easily at the touch of a button. This unfortunately can lead to a perpetual cycle of focusing on what our lives lack instead of being grateful for what we have. Now, I don't blame anyone for this. I do this. I used to do this. We shouldn't have this much access to other people's lives, to other people's reality so easily. It's actually quite odd when you think about it in like a parasocial way. Like, I'm following people on Instagram that I haven't spoken to or seen in person in like 10 years, but I'm seeing intimate photos of them kissing their new husband at their wedding. It's like beautiful, but it's kind of odd when you think about it from a wider angle. But it fuels the desire to constantly be chasing things that other people have. Like, if I was someone who really wanted to get married at a certain age and I was like planning my wedding to a T and stuff, and then I saw that on Instagram, I would feel really bad about my life. So it just highlights that we need to be focusing more on filling up our own cups and focusing on our own lives rather than craving something that we don't have. Here are some other quick psychological impacts that social comparison can have on us. The first one is fear of inadequacy, worrying that your life isn't good enough, worrying that you're not living up to your potential, having the grass is always greener effect, deep discontent with your own life, a fear of being left out, seeing your friends online, worrying that they're doing something and haven't invited you, or if you don't have so many friends, seeing friendship groups post online and feeling unlovable, unlikable, wondering why you don't have a set of friends like them. And the last one is chasing external validation. This is a big one I'm very passionate about because I used to be the biggest chaser. Because you're constantly comparing yourself and you feel inadequate in your own life because of this, you then feel the desire to get external validation from other people because you feel so shit about yourself. You need that confirmation that you are whatever your insecurity is, like that you are attractive or that you do have enough friends or that you are liked or whatever it is, when the reality is that you're only going to be fulfilled once you look inwards to find those things. While we're on the science though, there is a biological angle to this that I'll just briefly touch on. So our ancestors, their survival actually depended on seeking more, on finding more food to hoard, finding safety and having status within groups in order not to be cast out. Having enough was never actually enough when they were living in the wild. And so we built up this biological need for greed, always needing more. Because in the wild, obviously, there's a constant threat of being unsafe. And biologically, that mindset persists today. That's why we get anxiety, because we're perceiving an outside threat to be much larger than it actually is. And so we're constantly fearing not having enough, but in a more modern way. So just like our ancestors, we're constantly needing more in order to feel secure. But then that psychology of desire just keeps persisting. We never have enough. We're always looking for that next thing, that one thing in our fantasies that's going to change our perspective on life or completely change our life, and we'll finally be satisfied. So now we're going to touch on cultural influences. This is particularly going to center around the Western world, the capitalism and consumerism of the Western world, because I grew up and live in the Western world. So I just want it to be known that different cultures may experience this differently. So starting off with capitalism and consumerism, we, especially in the 21st century, are constantly taught, persuaded, propagandized into constantly upgrading to the next thing, whether that be subscriptions or phones or climbing up the career ladder. So this is still on the same theme that we are always chasing that next thing that might satisfy us. Once you get that promotion, are you then gonna feel happy with your life? Are all those wasted hours late night in the office missing out on personal time gonna be worth it finally? When we think about success, and especially when it's depicted on social media and in the Western world, it's often framed by what we don't have yet. More money, better body, nicer cars, that advert to buy a new supplement in order to lose belly fat, buy this toner to get glass skin, get this new self-driving car so that you can stay on your phone and consume more. Media and advertising, much like in episode 5 when I talked about industries thriving off of us hating ourselves, media and advertising also thrive off dissatisfaction with your lives, because you're just going to keep wanting more. You're just going to keep buying and consuming. Sorry, I just had to go and feed my cat. Back to what I was saying. They really depend on your belief that you'll be happy once you have this product. You're not complete without this one thing. Now, this doesn't apply to everything, but it can be true. Like when this new iPhone comes out, especially when you're younger, it becomes a herd mentality, like buy this phone because all of your friends are going to have it and you can do this cool new thing with it together, and it becomes this bridge to connect with people, or so they say, and you're convinced then you have to have it, that you have to have the latest stuff, and you spend your hard-earned money on it. This is niche as well, but I've written it down because it felt important. But as a teen especially, those like teen angst movies where the nerdy girl gets a massive makeover and she's suddenly really popular and cool and everyone likes her because she's got the latest fashion trends, the latest phone, and you know, all the boys then like her and things like that, and it makes you, I feel like that's propaganda for younger people to get those new things and spend money. I don't know, it makes it more desirable to fit in, you know. So let's talk about the illusion of fulfillment. Getting what we want doesn't always satisfy us, especially if it's something that's materialistic. There is a cycle of desire that goes desire, fantasy, pursuit, acquisition, adaptation, boredom, new desire. This is something that happens very, very, very often. It is normal, but it's not always meaningful or helpful. So simply learning this and knowing this can help you recognize when you're doing it and possibly intervene with yourself. So let me repeat the desire cycle. Desire, fantasy, pursuit, acquisition, adaptation, boredom, new desire. So as you can see, that fits in with the hedonic adaptation, the hedonic treadmill, and the grass is always greener effect that we were talking about just before. An example of this can be those celebrities who seemingly have it all. They've got the riches, they've got the looks, they've got the popularity, but they still don't seem happy. There's still something wrong. As well, the plastic surgery, when people who can afford it chase this certain look when they were so naturally beautiful, and you know, they're changing in the public eye and you can see that they're just getting more and more and more surgeries to the point where they don't even look like themselves anymore. And it is so sad, and it seems like an addiction. It seems like every time they get it done, this desire cycle completes and they get a new desire. They want more and more and more and more of it. They have to keep chasing that next trend to get that fix, to think that they'll finally be happy with the way that they look. It is so sad. I just want to say as well, like, please don't get plastic surgery unless it's necessary for your health. Learn your time is so much better spent leaning into embracing yourself than in a surgical room. Confidence and self-assurance is a beautiful thing. It makes you beautiful no matter what you look like, no matter if you fit in with the normal beauty standard or not, especially if you're in the public eye. Please take this advice, because the more we keep doing it, especially if you're being seen by millions of vulnerable and impressionable people, the more that everyone will be convinced that we have to chase this perfect look. Like, people say not to judge people who get those things done in the public eye, and I don't. I understand why people do it, but if we all just embraced ourselves, it would just be so much better for us. No one would feel that need to chase that perfect idea of beauty, because there isn't one. And everyone's unique. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes chasing that desire isn't a bad thing. Desire is helpful for driving ambition and creativity and being innovative. My desire to make this podcast is driving my ambition and motivation. Wanting more can be helpful for our growth, to improve ourselves and escape unhealthy situations, whether that be mental or monetary or whatever it may be. My point here being that there is a balance between contentment and striving. I think the difference here lies between whether you want something new in order to get some sort of benefit, like to help yourself grow, to become more financially stable, to become more mentally stable, or whether you want something different just because you want something different or new that's not gonna add anything to your life realistically. Desire can be harmless if you simply just desire a positive change for yourself. But if you're constantly chasing something new, hoping that it's gonna change your life, especially something materialistic, it's just going to be exhausting for you. It's just a burnout waiting to happen. You're never going to be satisfied. So let's break the cycle with some practical takeaways. The first thing that I have is shifting your perspective from the outcome of goals to the process of the goals. So instead of thinking, I want to have a 6-figure salary, think, I want to grow and learn in my skill or my craft every single day. Focus on who you're becoming and your personal growth, personal benefits, rather than what you're getting out of it. So that'll realign your desire from external rewards to internal values and improvement. The next one is a good one. It's called mental subtraction. It's again about shifting your focus. So instead of focusing on something that you want to get and focusing on something that's missing in your life, instead imagine what your life would be like without something that you already have. And that automatically will make you grateful for having that thing. For example, what if I didn't have my health? What if I didn't have that supportive family member? What if I didn't have my job right now? I do this a lot and it changes you. Seriously. I'll put in the description below a link to a study that highlights that mental subtraction can actually be more beneficial than making gratitude lists. And I absolutely think that too. It's very, very helpful in shifting perspective. But again, focusing on gratitude is always handy. Training your brain to think about the positives rather than the negatives or the lack of what you have in your life. Thinking about how much worse things could be is always helpful. Practicing gratitude as well when training your brain to be more positive. This can coincide with noticing how often your thoughts are quite negative, or when you're having that unhealthy desire. It's worth it to be mindful as well, and don't judge yourself for being negative and having that desire, because it is common and normal, but you do need to learn how to catch it and shift the perspective. Having a digital detox can also be helpful, limiting your exposure to social comparison triggers on social media, doing this for a certain amount of time, or even just less time in a day, reducing your screen time on social media. I know that you can do that on most phones. You can set a timer for how long you can have on something each day. Limiting, seeing influencers online and ads for things. If you just go on your phone less, you'll see it less. You'll see that your life improves. Another social media thing, curating your feed, block, unfollow unhelpful accounts, follow people that look like you, follow people that promote self-growth and fulfillment strategy. And remember that most content shows highlight reels and not the reality of someone's life. So try and be happy for them rather than comparing yourself. Experimenting with minimalism is also handy if you focus on things that really add value to your life rather than all the materialistic things that are usually pushed onto people these days. If you have less materialistic things surrounding you, you tend to desire less things like that, and you focus more on adding that non-tangible value to your life with connections and getting to know yourself. Finally, it's important to speak about these things. If you're feeling unhappy with your life, please tell someone. Please get help. Talk to a trusted parent, friend, relative, doctor if you trust them, mental health professionals in particular. If you have the luxury of being able to afford a therapist or a psychologist, they can either help you, but they can also reflect back to you how far you've come, how great you're doing from a non-biased perspective. They may be able to show you the value and the important things that you do have in your life that maybe you're not seeing right now because of the mindset that you're in. It can be really handy to get a perspective of someone that you trust from a safe person. So finally, I am going to leave you with some questions to think about as you exit this episode today. Number 1, what are you chasing right now? And why are you chasing that thing? Is it for materialistic desire and want, or is it from growing? Is it from adding value to your life? Would you still want that thing if no one else knew that you had it? Would it truly make you happy to your core? Or do you want it because other people have it? Or because you think other people would respect you more if they knew that you had it? Is your desire coming from curiosity, comparison, or emptiness? Are you looking to fill a void within yourself by getting that thing? And if you are looking to fill a void, is it something of materialistic value? Or do you think that it holds the capacity for growth? Do you want that thing because it aligns with your values? Or do you want it because you saw someone else have it? And finally, what do you already have that fulfills the feeling that you're craving, that you think you will get from this thing? What do you already have in your life that has the value of the thing that you're desiring? I hope that gives you something to reflect on today. Thank you so much for listening to episode 7 of Things We Say in Therapy. I hope you found something valuable. Please consider giving this podcast a rating or a like and following me on all my platforms. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and most other podcast platforms. I'm excited to grow these platforms and get this information out there. I'd love it for it to be shared. Thank you so much for being here. As always, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. I'll see you again. Bye.